I was having a complete meltdown over my broken radiator when my landlord knocked on my door at 9 p.m. And the first thing he said wasn't about the heating issue. I texted him about 3 times that day. It was, "Are you okay?" His voice carried the kind of genuine concern that made me realize he'd been hearing more through these thin Brooklyn walls than just my complaints about the temperature. Standing there in my doorway, tall and broad-shouldered with graying temples and eyes that looked like they'd seen their share of sleepless nights, he was studying my tear-stained face with an intensity that made my heart skip for reasons that had nothing to do with my broken heating. "I'm fine," I lied, wrapping my arms around myself in the oversized sweater that had become my uniform for the past week of living in what felt like an icebox. "It's just the radiator. I know it's late, but my apartment is freezing and I have an important presentation tomorrow." "Anna," he said quietly, and the way he said my name like he'd been thinking about it, about me made me stop mid-sentence. "I heard you crying, last night and the night before. The radiator is just an excuse, isn't it?" If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow. I stared at him, mortified that my private breakdowns had been audible to the man who owned the brownstone I'd been renting a studio apartment in for the past 6 months. Michael Chen wasn't what I'd expected when I'd first viewed the place. Instead of the typical absent landlord who collected rent checks and ignored maintenance requests, he lived in the larger apartment upstairs and seemed to genuinely care about the building and its tenants. "I'm sorry," I whispered, heat creeping up my neck. "I didn't realize the walls were so thin. I'll try to keep it down." "That's not." He ran a hand through his dark hair, and I caught a glimpse of something vulnerable in his expression. "Anna, can I come in, please?" "Why?" "Because I think we need to talk, and because you're standing there shivering and I can fix your radiator in 5 minutes if you let me." I stepped aside to let him enter, suddenly very aware of how small and cluttered my studio apartment looked compared to what I'd glimpsed of his space upstairs. He moved through my tiny living area with the kind of careful efficiency that suggested he knew exactly what was wrong with the heating system and had probably been putting off dealing with it for too long. "You don't have to fix it tonight," I said, watching him examine the old radiator. "I know it's late." "It's fine. I should have taken care of this earlier." He glanced back at me. "Anna, how long have you been having trouble sleeping?" The question was so direct, so unexpectedly personal, that I felt tears threatening again. "What?" "The crying. It's not just the past couple nights, is it?" I sat down on my small couch, pulling a blanket around myself. "Why does it matter?" "Because I recognize the sound." Michael's voice was quiet, careful. "Because 20 years ago I was the person keeping neighbors awake with grief they didn't know how to process." "You don't know anything about my situation." "Don't I?" He turned from the radiator to face me fully. 25 years old, living alone in Brooklyn, working what looks like 60-hour weeks based on when your lights are on. Recently ended relationship based on the fact that you used to get flowers delivered every Friday and now you don't. Probably feeling like you're failing at adulthood because everyone else seems to have it figured out and you're just trying to make it through each day. I stared at him, shocked by how accurately he'd read my life from casual observations. "Are you stalking me?" "I'm paying attention. There's a difference." He knelt down next to the radiator, pulling tools from a bag I hadn't noticed him carrying. "Anna, what happened that's got you crying yourself to sleep every night?" "My fiancé left me," I said, the words coming out in a rush. 3 months ago. We were supposed to get married next month, had the venue booked, invitations sent, my dress hanging in the closet. Then he decided he wasn't ready for marriage, wasn't sure I was the one, needed time to figure himself out. Darn. Yeah, darn. I pulled the blanket tighter around myself. So now I'm stuck with a lease I can barely afford on my own, a job that's slowly killing my soul, and a wedding dress I can't return because it was custom made. Michael was quiet for several minutes, working on the radiator with focused intensity. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with something that might have been understanding. "How long were you together?" 4 years. Since college. I thought I had my whole life planned out, you know? Graduate, get a job, marry David, buy a house, have kids. All the boxes you're supposed to check to prove you're a functional adult. And now? Now I don't know what I want. I don't even know who I am without him, without that plan. Tears started sliding down my cheeks again. God. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this. You're my landlord, not my therapist. Michael stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. Try the heat now. I walked over to the radiator and felt warm air beginning to flow. Thank you. How much do I owe you? Nothing. It's my building. My responsibility. He started packing up his tools, but didn't move toward the door. Anna, can I tell you something? What? When my wife died 5 years ago, I spent 2 years thinking my life was over. We'd been together since high school, had all the same plans you described. House, kids, growing old together. When she got cancer, when I watched her fade away over 8 months, I thought the person I was died with her. My heart clenched. I'm so sorry. The point is, I understand what it feels like when the future you'd built your identity around disappears, when you're not sure who you are if you're not half of a couple. And what did you learn? That grief takes time, that rebuilding yourself is harder than building yourself the first time, that sometimes the person you become after everything falls apart is stronger than the person you were before. I studied his face, taking in the lines around his eyes, the careful way he held himself, the quiet strength that suggested he'd learned to carry pain without letting it break him. Is that why you live alone in this big building? Because you're still rebuilding? Partly, and partly because I'm not sure I remember how to be close to someone anymore. Michael, I said carefully, why are you telling me this? Because for the past 6 months, I've been watching you try to hold yourself together, coming home late from work, barely eating, never having friends over. And because hearing you cry reminds me of myself, and I keep thinking someone should have told me it was okay to fall apart. Is it okay to fall apart? It's necessary. You can't rebuild something that you haven't let yourself grieve. I looked at him, this man who'd appeared in my life as just the person who fixed broken things and collected rent, but who was offering me the kind of understanding I hadn't found anywhere else. Michael, can I ask you something personal? More personal than what we've already discussed? Do you ever feel like you're waiting for your real life to start? Like you're just going through the motions until something changes? His smile was sad, knowing. Every day. And what are you waiting for? I don't know. Permission to be happy again, maybe. Evidence that I'm capable of caring about someone without being terrified of losing them. The words hung between us like a confession, dangerous and beautiful and completely inappropriate given that he was my landlord and I was his tenant dealing with a recent breakup. What would you do if you were in my place? Tell me in the comments. Anna, Michael said quietly, I should probably go back upstairs. Why? Because I'm 44 years old and you're 25. Because you're vulnerable right now and I'm in a position of power over your housing situation. Because the last thing you need is to complicate your life with feelings for someone who spent 5 years learning how to be alone. And what if I don't care about any of that? You should care. Your judgment might be compromised right now. Or maybe my judgment is clearer than it's been in years because I'm finally paying attention to what I actually want instead of what I think I should want. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the way his dark eyes searched my face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. What do you want, Anna? I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning. I want to remember what it's like to connect with someone who sees me as more than just a role to fill in their life plan. I want. I paused, gathering courage. I want to know what it would feel like to kiss someone who understands that broken doesn't mean worthless. Anna, I know this is complicated. I know the age difference, the landlord-tenant thing, the fact that we're both dealing with our own damage. But Michael, I haven't felt this seen by another person in years. If we cross this line, Michael said, his voice rough with restraint, there's no going back. If it doesn't work out, you'll need to find somewhere else to live. I can't be your landlord and your ex-boyfriend. And if it does work out? Then we figure out how to navigate something that probably shouldn't make sense but somehow does. I moved closer, close enough to touch the front of his shirt, to feel the warmth radiating from his body. Michael, I need you to understand something. What? I'm not looking for someone to save me or fix me or replace what I lost. I'm looking for someone who gets that healing isn't linear, that building something new doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. And you think that's me? I think you're the first person who's made me feel like maybe I don't have to have everything figured out to be worth caring about. He cupped my face in his hands, thumbs brushing away tears I didn't realize were falling. Anna, you're worth caring about exactly as you are. Broken radiator, tear-stained cheeks, uncertain future, and all. Then why are you hesitating? Because I care about you too much to risk hurting you by moving too fast. And what if moving too slow means we miss our chance entirely? Instead of answering, he kissed me. Soft, careful, tasting like possibility and the kind of future I'd stopped believing in. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. This is insane, I whispered. Completely insane. I'm 25 and have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I'm 44 and haven't dated anyone in 5 years. You're my landlord. You're my tenant who keeps me awake at night because I worry about you. So what do we do? Michael smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him. We take it one day at a time. We're honest about what we're feeling and what we need. We figure out the practical stuff as we go. And if people think we're crazy, then they think we're crazy. But Anna, I'd rather be crazy with you than sensible and alone. Have you ever found unexpected love in the most ordinary circumstances? Share your story in the comments. That night, Michael stayed until almost midnight, not because we did anything inappropriate, but because we talked. Really talked. About grief and hope, and the strange comfort of finding someone who understood that healing looked different for everyone. When he finally went back upstairs, he left me with his phone number and a promise that I could call him any time and no as my landlord, but as someone who cared about my well-being. 6 months later, I'm writing this from the apartment we share on the top floor of his brownstone. The studio downstairs has a new tenant, a graduate student who occasionally plays music too loud, but who seems to be thriving in her own messy way. Michael and I took things slowly, coffee dates that turned into long walks through Brooklyn, dinners where we shared stories about who we'd been before life taught us that love was fragile, quiet evenings where we learned to be comfortable with each other's silence. We learned that age gaps matter less than emotional compatibility, that being a landlord and tenant was the least complicated part of our relationship, that two broken people could build something beautiful together without fixing each other. The wedding dress is donated to a charity that helps women who can't afford their own. The future I'd planned with David feels like someone else's dream now, and I'm grateful for that. Because the life I'm building with Michael isn't based on checking boxes or meeting societal expectations, it's based on choosing each other every day, broken radiators and tear-stained nights and all. And sometimes the best love stories begin with the worst breakdowns, in apartments with thin walls and landlords who know the difference between fixing things and healing them. If stories about healing and second chances inspire you, make sure you're subscribed. I share one real story every single day, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.